You are watching Omnis Protocol. I am Charles, also known as Omnis, and I'm here with Luke, not Skywalker, the better version, Thompson. Dude, I'm so glad to be recording with you.
Yeah, likewise. I feel like we've spent a lot of time chatting in the Discords, but never actually jumped on one of these before. So, yeah, also excited.
And been admiring your models as well. Very beautiful painter.
Very kind.
Credit there. I have heard that you are Australian royalty. Can you confirm or deny these rumors?
Look, as much as we don't actually have royalty, I'll claim it anyway. So yeah, sure. All right. Let's go with yes. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, Luke, why don't you just tell the viewers, kind of who you are and a little bit of your background as we dive into this Adepticon prediction episode.
Yeah, sure thing. So I'm diehard miniatures gamer, have been for a long time. Started off with X-Wing back in the 1.0 days and sort of carried on, followed my same gaming group all the way from sort of when I first started through to, when X-Wing died off, then it was Underworlds and a few other bits and pieces tried, MCP a little bit, and then when Shatterpoint landed, that's sort of been the main game for me ever since. In terms of that game, probably claim to fame. I've won a couple of the bigger tournaments down here. Nothing for a good little while, but I've play a lot and spend more time than I really should chatting on the Discords about lists and that sort of thing. So I'm sure I've probably spoken to most of your listeners at one stage or another.
And I've heard that the Australian Meta is a little scared of you at times. That you are a kingpin in the Swiss that nobody wants to have to face down Luke.
Oh yeah, look, I've had some good runs, is what I'll say. Had some good runs here and there.
Not bad. All right. Well, so I know we didn't preface with this, but now I'm just kind of curious. What do you think pulled you into Shatterpoint? As when you commit and you're like, Shatterpoint is my main game. What do you think it was about Shatterpoint that kind of put you're like, nope, this is the one for me?
Yeah, fair. I mean, look, Star Wars never hurts. Love Star Wars. Have since I was a kid, right?
It's a pretty great IP. Yeah.
It's an excellent IP. Beyond that, it was sort of, it arrived at a time when I was sort of looking for a miniatures game home, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I just loved the attack trees are such a unique thing in the dice. I love 100%. That it's sort of that beautiful combination, real sweet spot of, there's a fair bit of luck to it, but predictable luck. These things are going to spike only so hard. Vader's going to full tree every time he looks at anything, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's sweet. And just the level of movement as well was really exciting. I remember, first time I got the rules and sort of broke out I think I pulled out some MCP bases and just sort of did some rough measurement based off the MCP, measuring and just I think I was having a play with Anakin. Okay, so if he hits all of his tree and does a jump and then this and then follows up a couple of shoves, he just crosses the whole map. And that was just sort of mind blowing coming from even MCP, which is a pretty mobile game, but it's not cross the map in a activation mobile, right? So it's just sort of, I don't know, just an exciting combination of things I hadn't seen in anything else.
I agree on all of the points. And I don't think that the level of variance gets talked about enough, because I think whatever game you're playing, people are always complaining about dice. People are complaining about any variance, but fundamentally, there's a reason we're not playing chess, right? Yeah. If we wanted a absolute minimal variance game, we would be playing chess, but we actually like a degree of unpredictability, a degree of requiring adaptation. And I 100% agree with you where I think Shatterpoint hits that really pretty perfect number for me, where it's just enough variance for excitement and, not everything goes exactly the way you want. But this is probably something on a lot of people's minds as they're traveling to Adepticon. They're gearing up for Worlds. And, unfortunately, you are not going to be there representing Australia. Was it even on the radar at all? Were you like, maybe can I make this happen, or is it no chance?
No, I've got a 4-year-old daughter. I just, that's, bridge too far, unfortunately. One day I'd love to. Absolutely would love to. It's a personal dream of mine for sure. But, not on the cards anytime soon, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. I know in my War Machine days, we had a year where multiple Australian players came over for Worlds and War Machine, and it was like the whole community kind of funded them coming over to like make it all function, because it was not an easy escape. But maybe we'll have you over. But part of why I wanted to have you on for this is I had Kenny on for the LVO one because I knew Kenny was not returning to that particular LVO. He had too many events nearby. And I think there's an extra level of excitement of getting to talk with someone who, you know, isn't actually going to be there, so they could drop all their secrets, right? There's no desire to like hold back special tech or anything. And when I was like, no, I shouldn't do Kenny again. I should specifically pick someone not going. And you were first on my list. I'm so glad we were able to make this happen, because I think the people who are traveling to Adepticon right now are going to be really excited. So I'm going to drop this right as people are traveling. So if it'll come out Tuesday night. So try to resist if you're kind of starting to watch this. This is meant for your travel. This is, you're going to be on a plane, you're going to need something. And I wanted this because this is really for me. I always loved having new podcasts and stuff to listen to during my travel to events. But let's dig right into the Adepticon meta. So kind of, there's a lot of places where we could start. And let's just go right for the elephant in the room and be like, we know that Boss and Cassian is on everyone's minds as like, how much of the meta is this? So many people have said this is distinctively the meta. Do you think there's a reasonable chance that we have a finals game where at least one side does not have one of these models? Or do you think it is almost certainly going to be something Cassian versus something Boss or something like that?
Yeah, look, I think Cassian and Boss, I think overwhelmingly likely. Look, they are both very strong models with a lot of variation in the archetype around both of them. Yeah. It's not like, back when it was, Iden and V2 or Iden and Moff, and that was sort of it in terms of what the big players were playing, right? There's definitely variety amongst both of those lists, but, I think it's pretty likely, as much because I know, just from listening to podcasts and that sort of thing, that a lot of the big players that are likely to make those final tables are bringing them as much as anything. But I think there's a really good chance. Never count out a dark horse list, right? This is, Shatterpoint. Rare you'd enter a game without at least some sort of a shot. But, I think the strong odds that it's going to be one of those.
Well, and if we recall last year, Han Solo made the top tables, which was something widely most players were really overlooking Han as a top tier character. Now, did not come away with the win, but at the same time, Armorer Dooku, I believe, was in the winners, in Scott's breakdown. I don't think he played. I'm forgetting what the exact finals were off the top of my head, but there was still like some things that were not fully expected by most players, and I would not count that out. But I'm curious from your perspective. Let's say hypothetically, you are in the finals, and would you think that you would rather be playing in the finals with Boss plus X or Cassian plus X? Not saying that would be your list, but if you had to be on one side of that, which one do you think you would be on?
I think the Cassian side probably. I think both because I think he brings some more interesting list building opportunities. Like I think Boss very much I think the obvious ones are probably the strongest ones by a fair margin. Like I think it's Boss Hunter if you just want to go straight murder, or Boss Obi for something that's a little bit more all comers, but maybe not as good in the mirror. Whereas Cassian, there's a lot of potential variety. I think, there's some obvious, I think anything with some sort of double revenge is probably where it lands, right? I think, but it's really hard to land on where that is. And this is the tricky bit with him, I think, is that you've got, PLC is a great pairing. Unless you're playing into something like Boss Obi, in which case I think PLC is actually really ineffective. Or even maybe a Boss Mace or something a little off the chain. Like if you're dealing with Steadfast, there's a lot of Steadfast. PLC can sometimes just do nothing. She's a bit squishy. Kanan, likewise, excellent. But then again, also a lot of tools to get around the Kanan revenge trigger. I think that's the Cassian side is probably the more interesting list building, opportunity. So I think if you're going and you're like, okay, I'm going to bring Cassian because I'm sure he's the best. He's one of the best things. I think that's the more interesting side to play on.
Yeah, I will agree with no dissension there. If I was going to be on one of the sides, I think it would be Cassian. As much as I think boss is very interesting, and there are some very cool boss builds. I mean, even if I'm just, so like I've been playing a fair amount of Empire lately, and honestly, I would rather be playing Iden Vader 1 than boss plus anything, to be entirely honest with you. Do you think that I'm crazy there? Like, before we get into like a Cassian, I was like, if I'm playing against Republic, I would much rather be playing Vader 1 and Iden, or not necessarily prefer in the sense that I think they're more fun, but in the sense that I think I could come out on top of Boss Hunter or Boss Obi or even probably Boss Vader 1. That's probably the craziest of or the hardest to overcome. But do you think that the meta is sleeping a little bit on Empire? And do you think Empire would stand up as much as I am starting to feel confident in compared to Republic?
Yeah, no, I think if there's let's say a likely dark horse, as in outside of the boss Cassian, I think something Empire murdery with Iden is pretty strong into a lot of the scenarios you're dealing with, right? Like Iden, just identity alone, you can strain or disarm things to turn down revenge triggers. You're quite good at murder. They're situationally tanky, which is probably one of the harder bits, is with all the good supports being 7 health now, even with protection. It can be a little bit dicey. But I mean, look, I brought a Iden V2 to CanCon, somewhat intentionally, avoiding Boss and Cassian because it, more fun to bring something different. But, I do think, it's not a unfavorable matchup for them. It goes a bit either way, but if you can get, an early pick on Fixer, for example, turn those dice down, early pick on 7 Scorch so they can't, rule 17 too much, and you're in business, 100%.
Oh, my last game into boss, I took Fixer down to 1 multiple times.
Oh, that
I
hurts.
was like, I kept erring on the side of like, I don't need to use Vader dice right now. He's got 3 health left. And every single time my dice were like, shoulda done the extra thing, shoulda switched to the offensive side. But anyway, the point is, I know I'm not trying to say I don't think Boss and Republic isn't really strong, because I think it absolutely is. I think there are really powerful builds there. And before we kind of move past Boss, like my instinct is if I was a player who wanted to bring Boss to Adepticon and I wanted to play, Republic for the most part, I think so. I'd probably play Delta Box. I'd probably play, a fairly classic OB build, pick your favorite support with Rex and then make a hunter squad as well. But it's really that 4th squad that gets kind of complicated. If I were going to go into that, my 4th squad would actually probably be Mando, Bosk, and Bazin Chirrut to round that out. I think it does actually like pretty cool things with Boss that people are not prepared for, because Bosk gets turned on when Boss gets to roll like 10 dice attacks, or you're like, oh, when Boss's force is popping off and you're recovering more than you really needed, you can just turn Bosk into Delta for extra dice on other people's attacks. And it gives you a revenge trigger and something that's hard to kill if you end up in another mirror match with Mando. But what about you? What would you do? Or what would you predict as kind of the top kind of like Boss Republic focused premiere?
Yeah, I think you're exactly on the money with Obi and Hunter. I think they're both great pairings. They do different things. Obi's such a great gear check.
Heard it here first.
Yeah,
Boss,
I know,
Obi,
right?
Hunter, good lists.
Yeah.
Bringing the heat
absolutely
here.
Right. I think I would actually be tempted to maybe bring something like a Kiadi, Shakti, someone, with the intent of pairing them with Obi. And so then you get something that's more of I can sponge damage. I don't necessarily need to do a ton of wounds. So if the matchup you're going into is, okay, I'm seeing they don't have a ton of offense to climb over the top of me, then I can put something like that up and, push them around with force pushes and hunker shenanigans rather than, having to lean into the Delta, Delta aggro. Cause that's the one thing. If you're pivoting around Delta, you're always doing the angry build, right? So having a different option
you're
would probably
always
be where I'd go.
pushing extreme. I mean, my pick before the Jin box came out and before the Delta box came out, my pick for best list in the game was Kiadi and Obi. I think that was hands down, in my opinion, the best list at that moment. Now, there's been a lot of talk that like Shaak Ti's too fragile and she just goes down. Now we're in a reality that unless you're talking about like Chewie or Wrecker, pretty much all secondaries just die. But do you stand by that logic that like Shaak Ti is too fragile for this specific meta? Cause obviously you were suggesting her right there. So my gut says probably not, but what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly on the money. Like everything is fragile in this meta, right? So with that, then you just come to utility. And there is some things that she's excellent at. Like one of the very few models that can just clear a point. She's also very good at just crossing the board and clearing a point as well. Like if you've got someone to hit along the way, like it's trivially easy to get jump, move, reposition, force repulse. That's almost clear any point, right? So, and she gets to move a friend on top of it. I've had 4 or 5 point swings with her before. Like she's a really good utility model. She is a little squishy. Certainly as soon as you get she's with Obi, as soon as you get a hunker on her, she's the opposite of squishy. She's actually incredibly hard to get when you're talking about 6 or 7 defense dice. That makes a big difference. Particularly, you got the immune disarm for potentially some less damage. So I think she's definitely viable. I think the hard thing is just there's so much offense that she just doesn't play into all of the strategies you're going to deal with. And something in your premier list definitely needs to have an answer to what if all of the dice and all of the damage. And she doesn't play naturally into that, I guess is probably the one weakness. But, I agree. I think Kiadi, Obi is an excellent list. That's another one I've played a lot of. It's great fun. It's very strong. As soon as
Obi's pretty popular in Australia from what I hear.
So popular. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just want to, for everyone who's just like reading the online discussions and whatnot and like Shaak Ti just dies in this meta, people are still fucking playing Ezra and he is definitely more killable than she is. So,
no question.
Or like they're at least on like a very similar scale of average. Right.
Yep.
And so I think that's something, and like Shaak Ti actually like deals with the like force of being wounded better because she brings an extra force. She can still always jump for free. Right. And so if you're going, I would totally play Ezra. Ezra is still good. I think the same logic applies to Shaak Ti. Don't be scared off of playing her in your list. I would absolutely not be surprised if Shaak Ti was on the top tables, but Shaak Ti might be my favorite secondary in the game. So
fair. She is a lot of fun.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Republic absolutely has a lot of play here. I don't think we'd be surprised at all to see Boss do very, very well. And even though weirdly Obi just does not seem to be super popular in the US meta, like I don't have a good argument for why that is. I don't understand it. He's the character I probably like playing against the least. I think he's really, really damn good. And I would not be surprised to see him bust into the top tables either. So we'll see how people unveil that. But let's shift over and talk about Rebels for a minute, and Cassian kind of focused lists. Do you have a pick? You were kind of talking about it earlier. You're like, well, Kanan can have problems with like these 7 Scorch and Wrecker builds with so many ways, and like Boss, Wrecker, 7 Scorch, so many bombs. Bombs is my generic term for, roll some dice, get X amount of damage. And so you can ignore Kanan triggers in some rough situations, and you get a few of those. That's really all you need to kind of check that list in a big way. And I agree with you. I think Leia in particular, I would not want to be playing against something like Boss Obi with Cassian Leia. I would be very worried that list does not have enough full damage to like punch through the hunkers, and it lacks displacement, doesn't have a force push naturally. And so that would definitely be a concern for me. And then it's kind of like, who do you put? I have a thought, but wanted to give you a chance. Like, what do you think is the ultimate pairing for Cassian at this moment?
Yeah, that's fair. Look, I think that's part of the interesting part about Cassian at the moment is I actually don't think he has a perfect pairing. I think as much as, I think there's a lot of flexibility in, let's be, you're going to put B and C in somewhere. You bring Cassian, and if you bring Cassian, you're going to bring B and C. Beyond that, I think there's a lot of, all of the other building blocks are up for grabs. So I think, PLC and Kanan, both very good pairings, no question. Yes. I think Jin is a super interesting pairing. I think it probably pushes you towards K2, so you have that second revenge trigger anyway. But I think she deals with some of the force stuff. She's also just a very dynamic activation, which is really good for Cassian, who is just sort of a medium, I'll say, dynamic activation. He can sometimes flub. Likewise, Mando, quite interesting. Again, he's he brings some diceless displacement. He's incredibly tanky, which is very useful in this meta. So again, I think it sort of depends on what you want to tool up and deal with. I will say for my part, the thing that scares me the most if I see a Cassian list is with both of the obvious 5-point supports. So Han and Chewie and Baze and Chirrut, because that list puts out so much damage. And so it sort of takes off the options, something like an Obi that I'd usually like to put up against Cassian, like a PLC, Ezra, less offensive list. That sort of climbs over the defenses you'd want to put. So, I think the primary is a little bit of a flavor to taste is kind of my feel. And then it's, how do you arrange the secondaries and supports? Are you going for damage? Are you going for defense? But curious to hear. Sounds like you do have a preference in mind, so I'm curious to hear it.
Yeah. So before I get to my preference, I do want to shout out that I think Cassian Ahsoka, with Ahsoka doing pawns and 7 Scorch, obviously to bring the two best supports in the game, 7 Scorch and Baze and Chirrut, at the same time, and have the advantage of being Ahsoka can actually full move, potentially make attacks. And she's not quite as tanky as say Mando, but she's up there. And she can enhance tankiness of those, expensive supports if she's getting up there as well.
Yeah, no, that's great. I've never played against it, but that sounds terrifying. I think, the good thing about Ahsoka is I agree. She's not as tanky as Mando, but she's at that point where you usually think twice before you bother attacking her, because it's so easy to just flub attacks into her.
Yep. But she's probably not my pick. I think Mando would be my pick because, as we were kind of talking about with Obi, right, I would want to have some displacement in there. And Kanan kind of obviously he's got force push. Kanan does a lot of things. And so I would probably lean Kanan over Leia. But I think Mando brings a really tanky model, which helps in the mirror match, which I think in this world, there is a very reasonable chance that you could be playing Cassian versus Cassian. And I would definitely want to be in the camp of playing Cassian Mando if I had to play into Cassian plus pretty much anything else. I'm trying to think of a matchup where I wouldn't prefer playing Cassian Mando. And I think it would not be crazy to see it. I don't think it will be the most popular version, but I would not be surprised to see someone in the top 8 rocking some incarnation of that. Do you think I'm crazy or?
No, not at all. No, that's very reasonable. I think, Mando's sort of been a very popular model since he came out for a good reason, right? He's just all around solid, pretty flexible where he goes. You got scoundrels everywhere in those rebel lists, so he's pretty safe to do his clan or two. I think he's a great pick as well.
And there's a very natural synergy of if he's on points with models, you're probably ignoring that point, and then Cassian Bomb blows up, deals him and some guys damage, but then you kill anything, he's healing himself or those guys that are near him, so you can kind of make up for some of that Cassian Bomb shenanigans. But I want to talk about one thing that we saw, at least in the US, multiple GT winners playing basically all Rebel Premier so they can basically play Cassian every game. Do you think this is something that we're still going to see at Adepticon, at Worlds, or do you think you're going to break it up and have a more than just Cassian all the time?
No, I think we're definitely going to see it, right? I think Cassian, again, for all the reasons we've been talking about, Cassian is a pretty flexible unit in terms of what he pairs with and what the game plan is with what he pairs with. So no, I think it's a perfectly reasonable. You can build a very balanced squad off pivoting around Cassian and putting all the really good stuff in his list. I wouldn't be shocked to see one or two of them in the top 8.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Probably would not be my personal pick. Every time I heard someone talking about this, they always had that one squad that they just weren't as confident in. And I think sometimes that was Jin. Sometimes it was like, oh, they've got like the Leia box, right? And they're like, let me get Leia and Han and Chewie, kind of played and then focus on the other combinations after that. And I would just be very worried about, maybe it's just in my history. I feel like I always get really badass players around 1, and I don't feel like I ever have a chance to like, oh, I can get my weaker list out of the way. But on that note, with something like Worlds, you've played in a lot of big events. Do you think you can go into something like this with a reasonable expectation of going, yeah, I've got this one weaker list. I just got to find a spot to drop. Do you think that's a good strategy? Would you lean towards like, be as confident as you can in every incarnation?
No, I think you have to be at least quite confident with everything you're bringing. I don't think you ever get a throwaway squad in the true sense in something like Worlds. It's just like so many good players. It's open sign up, so maybe you get someone newer, but even just, I don't know if you've noticed the same thing, but I'm finding more and more the community as a whole is grasping the game much more than they are. Like people even a bit newer. You never get an easy game anymore. Not in the same way a year into the game you used to, where there was still a lot of people that hadn't quite grasped it's good to Shatterpoint good to Shatterpoint supports, that sort of stuff. Like, yeah, I think, the overall maturity of the community is so high. You don't get easy games. Not really.
Well, and there also can be players that you haven't heard of online. But if someone's got a good 6 to 9 months of playing heavily, researching heavily, watching videos, staying in touch with the meta, getting good practice, some people may only have one event per year that they can really get out to. And there's not a crazy chance that this would be Adepticon. So there could absolutely be people that you're like, oh, I don't know who this person is. I'll drop my weaker list, and then have your whole weekend wrecked because they pushed your shit in. And you're like, who is this Bob dude?
Yeah, absolutely. Even actually our CanCon, the last big event I went to, is a classic example. One of the guys I think he was from Sydney, younger guy. He was the ultimate winner, and apparently he's doing sort of your 2-2, 3-1 at local events, and just whatever it was, clicked for that weekend. Had a god run, 6-0. 100%. You'll see it for sure.
Well, I think there's some real subtlety to Shatterpoint where you're like, you've got all the basics, but then suddenly you just have those games where you're just in the moment. You're like, yep, I've always got Mando or Bo-Katan or Rex within range 2 where I'm getting some extra heals. And then suddenly you keep one guy alive and they don't get shoved off of a point. And that's the game, right? And that's the difference. And so sometimes it's I feel like everyone I talk to agrees with this, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. I am amazed at how often a Shatterpoint game comes down to a couple of millimeters.
Yeah, 100%. No, I agree. No, it's the little stuff, like the go get a point, pretty obvious. Often at least reasonably obvious that there's one or two good options if you got Shatterpointing, or I reserve this because it's definitely terrible. But those millimeters of, I can dash from this point to that point, or I can shoot before I move so I can do this other stuff. No, 100% agree. I think, there's a lot of deep subtlety to being good at the game for sure.
Well, so we've been mostly talking about, supports and primaries. I do have a gut instinct that we could be seeing the Chewbacca secondary making, I don't want to say a comeback because I don't feel like he was ever popular, but I feel like if there was ever a meta that he was going to be good for, whenever I play against him, that 12 health is just really impactful. And if you're playing Cassian, you just want guys alive so that you can move them onto a point. And Chewbacca does that in a way that pretty much no other Rebel secondary does. And the fact that he also has the, little expertise bubble as well. So good. And we've got Wrecker kind of making a little bit of a comeback on the Republic side for similar reasons. Tanky plus has some steadfast, and can kind of get you over some of those defensive hurdles. What do you think about these kind of a little bit more defensive secondaries potentially making a splash at Adepticon?
Yeah, no, I think that's really smart. I think, like you said, it's a very aggressive meta. And particularly when you're talking about pairing with Cassian, who wants models alive to move them, right? Like that's what wins him games. I think going in with a bit more of a chunky boy sort of, choice of secondaries in particular is definitely not a bad idea. So, Chewie, absolutely. Dengar, I think he's always sort of been cruising along, but yeah, very chunky boy. Can't pin him. Great. Even like Sabine, 8 health protection, pretty decent expertise. I think certainly leaning into a bit of defense is definitely not a bad idea.
Yeah, when you can get Dengar across from like Rebel Commandos, the pin is not just like control, right? It also is extra damage for them too. And so when you have something like Dengar across from Rebel Commandos, which are still bound to be played a lot. So I definitely agree with you there. I probably should have said Dengar, but I think most people are on the Dengar train, that he's quite good. I'm not sure that one's as spicy of a take as Chewie.
Yeah. No. I think that's a great call. And I think in particular, probably what that's also saying is we're thinking pretty hard about, should we be getting rid of someone like Ezra, who's been an absolute staple in those lists? Because let's be honest, Cassian moving a tiebreaker in Revenge, amazing. But when the game plan so often is, okay, I'm playing into Cassian, I'm just going to climb over the Revenge triggers with more aggro. A squishy model like that gets a bit scary. So no, I think that's probably, I think we'll see a bit of that. I think if there's any secret tech, within that sort of Cassian space, I think, Chunk is probably it.
I do still love Callus, right? So it's hard for me to give up on my boy Callus, but I think, I definitely think Chewbacca has a place. And I really would not be surprised to see if we had a Cassian winner who especially like overcame like a Cassian mirror match. I feel like it's going to be something like a Chewbacca or something that like just gives them a little tech where you're like, I got advantage in this matchup just because I was prepared for the mirror just a little bit more than the other person. Do you have any other thoughts on models that you think are going to sneak in that maybe not anybody is expecting, or at least most people are not expecting?
Look, if we're still talking about Rebels, I think those are probably, look, maybe the most dark horse picks is I have been playing around with Freedom Fighter Leia a little bit.
Okay,
I think she's, again, still a little shaky in this meta because aggro, she does die. It's not difficult to kill her. But again, if you're talking about maybe if you're expecting a lot of big players to move into that chunk side, then certainly Coordinate Fire Expose goes a long way. So she's interesting. She brings C-3PO and R2, which again, it's a very shooty meta. Great to have a model that can't actually be shot. So I think again, it's probably a hard sell. I think she's probably more one that post balance patch will be really interesting. But I mean, look, potentially, again, we're not talking about massive differences in list strength. I think a strong player who gets a little lucky with their matchups could still pull something like that through.
Oh, I don't think you're crazy there. I forget which GT it was, and I think I'm going to get in trouble because I'm going to say the wrong person. I think it was Brady who got like second at a GT in the US with Cassian Freedom Fighter Leia. And so I think she's been close. And I would be, if you see her across from you at Adepticon, if there's Callus in the list as well, where suddenly Cassian is an Ewok, so is Callus, and so the reroll is like 3 dice on Cassian and stuff, which offensively sometimes matters, but like when you just get to like switch a bad defense roll to a good defense roll, that stuff is really crazy. And so I don't think you're wrong there. I think, I'm not sure I'm going to bet on her being on the top table, but I would not be surprised, kind of in the way that we saw Han, if there was a Freedom Fighter Leia. I'm going to give it a 50-50 that a Freedom Fighter Leia shows up in the top 8. I would not be surprised. I don't think it's going to be many, but I think that could absolutely sneak in.
Yeah, that's a good call. And look, and Han's actually one we haven't touched on yet at all, but like just another consistently amazing model that I think gets a little overlooked because he's stronger than the sum of his parts, I think. I think you look at a lot of his stuff and it's individually, it's okay. But, he just together turns into just this amazing bag of dirty tricks that can really trick some opponents. Like things like, keep a little optimism here, is arguably the best, I'd argue one of the best abilities in the game. There's been so many games where I've won a game because I've been able to take a struggle in my opponent's turn because they wounded something at the wrong time. And,
even if they don't, even if they
Mm.
notice it, right? Even they go, I cannot get the wound here. I cannot take a wound in this moment, or I literally lose the struggle. Even they notice it, and you're just like, I just get to protect my character for nothing.
Yes, exactly right. For those not aware, so the amazing bit of that is that, so winning the struggle, great, amazing. Winning it in your opponent's turn means that effectively you get, because the next turn starts with you as the, so the first turn of the next struggle starts as you, which means that, like, sure, they still pick the struggle side, but you get the first activation, you get the first scoring ability. So it's almost like, almost as strong as I win the struggle and I get to do all the stuff I usually get for losing the struggle. It's such a strong trick when you can pull it off. Yes. So definitely Han Cassian also quite good.
Yeah, it's, I don't know off the top of my head, but now I'm thinking about the interactions with Cassian, right? Where like he can do like revenge triggers off Strain. And I was like, wait a second. Do your opponent still gets momentum when Strain kills them? Like
I'd have to go look. I feel like it might be opponent wounded for Khan's trick, but.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know off the top of my head. I don't want to like commit to it, but I was like, there's
good
there could
tricks.
be some sauce in there for someone to dig into it. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if Han gets up there as well. Like also Han's tactic, being able to give people a full advance if they have not activated, is really crazy. And people don't realize how often that's a really powerful tool to, set up so many different things. And so, but also Cassian Han there was players playing that at LVO as well. So I would not be surprised to see that pop up either. But we can branch outside of Rebels. Anything else jump out to you as things that would be kind of on your short list of dark horses or sneak into the meta?
Yeah, I mean, so we covered Empire. I think the Iden's probably the most interesting there, but I wouldn't rule out. Again, we were talking about having chunk in models and bringing some, GI, some sort of list with GI, Fifth Brother, Vader 3, all very difficult to win models, and all solid activations. GI can be a little, but like solid enough activations. I suspect it's not an area I've experimented with, but I suspect something around chunky Empire is a possibility. They have some good tricks. I think the other one.
Pause there for just a second.
Yeah, go
you
for it.
mentioned Vader 3. I think, now this is shouting back to the Rebels a little bit. I think there's a little bit of the meta sleeping on the potential of Vader 3 being somewhere in the mix, right? You're trying to finish out that list, right? What happens if your charming Leia list is Vader and ISBs? Because the ISBs are still spies, so they still have other synergies with your list, right? They still get reposition from Cassian as opposed to full advance, moving them, like, you can deal damage when people are trying to move away from them. And you get a tanky boy like Vader 3, which can also bring displacement, which is one of the things we were talking about being potentially a negative for Leia. So I think, but I have the tough part here. I haven't gotten Vader 3 on the table. So this is all theory for me. I just got stuck painting him and was like, the face wasn't quite right. And so he got set aside for a bit, but I think my gut says that there might be something with him even outside of Empire. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he doesn't need anything in Empire, right? Like, all of his stuff is, I work alone. It's fine. So look, like, definitely a possibility. I think probably the one thing that makes it a little hard is just from a list building perspective. The difference between him as a 5-cost secondary versus other very good 4-cost secondaries is not as big as jumping from a 4-cost support to a 5. So you have a bit of a list building challenge. But having said that, as you said, ISB are an example of a really good 3. Potentially Lando and R2 likewise can be in the right list quite good. So it's definitely not crazy. I wouldn't be shocked to see him somewhere, even though, he's absolutely not on the top of everyone's radar.
Yeah, I mean, if there was ever a time where people are going to be practicing something a little off meta, everybody wants their own flair, their own little spice mixed in here. So, if we're spoiling any of your tricks, I'm not going to apologize because I'm not sorry. But, but I hope somebody has some of this tech going. But anyway, go back to your thought. What other things do you think are going to sneak in?
Look, I mean, from here we're getting a bit more theoretical. So one other thing I've been playing with more in light of what might be good after balance patch, but could, I think, still solid chance. I think Mace is, particularly with the new mission, quite interesting.
Yeah.
That the challenge with Mace has often been, it's really easy to turn off the bubble by just moving people out. Or getting the bubble in the right place, indeed. And this mission sort of has that perfect combination of you've got one point in the middle of the board that's active struggle 1 and is often active struggle 2 as well. So what that means is you often have a center board dog pile, and if you can get him in there, then all of a sudden everyone has the bubble for most of the game. And that can be a big game changer, and even if you're not talking boss lists. So like Vader 1 Mace is a pretty interesting aggro list, for example. Cause you can get a lot of models that move a lot of friends around. So if you're playing into something that maybe isn't super aggro and you can keep things alive with the bubble as well, then that's pretty interesting. So Mace is not a obvious one, but I think wouldn't be shocked to see Mace in the top.
I think we just made Qui-Gon Jinn's day bringing up Mace, but I got to admit, I agree with you, and I legitimately would not be surprised if we saw Mace Obi top table. Like, I'm going to go that far as to say, I agree with you that we're in the theory territory now. Like, we haven't seen someone do really distinctly well with this, but I was weirdly, so this was a, like, sort of a demo game. This was a second game for someone who was coming from MCP, and he was most excited about Obi and Mace, and I was like, you are gonna like these guys. But in this meta where people are leaning aggro a little bit, there is something special, not just about the combination of like the Obi hunker mechanics, right? And like steadfast and protection, right? But it's also a list where you can still play Shaak Ti in this list. I think this list with Shaak Ti is very good. You know, go with a 3-cost support under Obi, give him Shaak Ti, still play Mace, Rex, other 3-cost support, right? I think this is a list that could absolutely break into the top 8. And I would not be surprised to see this be a list that people were just not ready for, because suddenly when you've got steadfast and protection on Shaak Ti and the ability for Mace to add defense dice in a key moment when you're just like, if you don't get Mace off this point, you don't flip a point this turn. And you're like, I'm going to spend 3 extra force and roll 3 more dice with my hunker tokens. And I absolutely think that sort of list could be one of the things that breaks outside the Cassian mold, outside the boss mold, that could be absolutely strong. And it also brings another thing that I think is really good in this meta, which is a reasonable amount of healing. I think topping off, there's a lot of incremental damage, right? You see it so much with Cassian. And so having characters like Rex, and just like what the list can kind of do in general, where you can kind of just top people off a little bit, get people back to full, is huge. So I'm glad you shouted that out. I absolutely agree with you. I think Mace could be the darkest, not the darkest of horses, but maybe the horse most likely to come out of the shadows. Is that, maybe that's the metaphor I'm looking for.
Yep. No, I like that a lot. I think, certainly when you layer the Mace bubble plus the Obi defense plus the extra defense dice plus the healing, unless they're like, it's still scary into like a full-on boss hunter, I'm just going to murder. It probably doesn't stop that. But when you got more of a mid-damage, control-y opponent.
One of the pure rebel lists, right? If you see that pure rebel list, I would play that Mace Obi into pure rebels, and I probably would be feeling medium confident. Maybe like 55%, you know. Do I think that I could beat Kenny with that? Gonna be tight, but I would not be unhappy to be on the side of Obi Mace there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's a really great call. I think, I won my first GT with that exact with that as half of my list, and it's still good. Well, it's better. It's been buffed, right? I'm a big fan of that list. I agree. That's clever.
All right. Well, I kind of interrupted you. Do you have any more that you want to add there?
No, look, I'll tell you what, one more, maybe if we just quickly jump back to Rebels, one other interesting list. Yeah. Again, I think it'll struggle a little in this meta. Han and Jin, where you've just got, again, it's probably a bit squishy and the revenge isn't good enough to quite stand up to the aggro, but it is a very dynamic list. So if you're playing into that sort of mid to low aggro lists, you can move a lot of stuff, both your primaries cross the board every activation and, move multiple things and move things out of the way as they go. I wouldn't be shocked to see something like that, at least as a second list, if not maybe the one you run all the way through.
And this is not the first time I've said it. I'm not expecting to see it on the top tables, but I do think if you're not choosing to play Charming Leia and you are playing Jin, I think Boushh is a really strong secondary. She has really kind of solid defensive expertise and dice, and it brings a force push to Rebels. And with Jin, you can afford it. And so I think that is a worthwhile consideration. I'm not sure anyone's going to be changing their list, but I, at least personally, would not be surprised to see Boushh if someone is playing Jin in a kind of a full Rebel, designed list.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. I think Boushh is underrated, but difficult to build for. I think as long as you can afford to do the push every turn, then she is quite good. And if you can't, she's less good. So,
there's also, I've said it before on, Rarely Reserved, but the moment when you're like, I have 2 force left, so I'm going to spend 1 force for her gain more dice in melee and shove one guy off the point, then get to spend a momentum for the force push because you only have 1 force left. So you don't have the 2. So you just drop 1 momentum. So you got like both things for 1 force. Like you also feel smart. Like you feel clever when you pull some of that stuff off. But I want to shout out, I want to go back to, I almost said GI and I did not mean to say GI. I think, Moff Gideon is something that I think people are sleeping on because I think a lot of the time he is thought of as you focus very specifically on Empire. And I think he's a little underexplored as a little bit more of a general, like other primary 4 list, right? He's a scoundrel. So you could do something like, not saying Mando Moff Gideon is the right list. I haven't like thought it through, but, or if when you're just building some of these lists, you're like, you throw 1 Empire thing under him and then give him a Rebel thing as well. And like, what kind of pressure can you put on people when you get to add that, the reserve tax on top of something in Republic, on top of something in Rebels? I think that could be the perfect thing because Cassian rides a very, very tight rope with the Force. And so I would not be surprised to see Moff Gideon come out of the work somewhere and see somebody do something creative with him that stands out and gets them into that final game.
Yeah, that's clever. I think again, he's a little bit of a tough, like you got to find the right spot for him, right? Because he is a little squishy. But at the same time, tie-breaking primary, awesome. He's generally got a reasonable activation. So I do like that. Just sort of, again, also making things up on the spot. But maybe if you put him in something where the intent is to have a very tanky list, specifically into boss, because the thing that falls apart with that list is if boss doesn't kill stuff, your force economy's garbage. Especially if boss doesn't kill things and you get fixer on a wound, then you're sort of like you're on easy street somewhat. Yeah. And if you're then also taking away the ability to reserve, I think there's something there. There's probably something there. Again, it's risky. But you know, if you bring in something as obscure as that and you do well, that's all the more glory, right? So.
Well, I'm always looking at things, especially when we're in a world where you're running kind of a tight force situation. Gideon can run 0 force very easily, right? He can just be that. I get a free dash. I get to do my movement. And then I got guns and swords and, and he's a tiebreaker, man, if all of a sudden I showed up to the game store and Donovan was dropping Cassian and, Moff Gideon against me, I'd be like, fuck, this is going to be rough.
So it's actually not a bad idea at all, really.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you combine him with something reserve, right? So, cause he's not the hardest character to wound. And so if you combine it with something that punishes you for getting the wound on him, you could exacerbate some situations. So, well, I'll kick it back to you. You were kind of anything else on your mind or you think might sneak in?
No, I think everything else is, again, it is for how many, like we've got so many models in the game now, so it wouldn't shock me for something else to come out of left field, but you've tapped me out in terms of, what I could think of.
Well, so we didn't mention Riff at all as to whether or not Riff breaks in. He's been in a lot of top eights, at least in the US. He's been in top eights somewhere. And I do still really like Aqua Droids. So what do you think the chances are that some sort of Riff list, whether that's Separatist or whether it's a scoundrel focused thing, kind of breaks that, gets into the top 8, knocking out key people, where do you stand with Riff?
Yeah, look, maybe he's one I have very little experience with or against. I've played him a few times and played him badly, which seems like an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, look, he pairs, like you said, Aqua Droids are quite good as far as supports goes. Not quite in that sort of top 2, 3, but they're good. He can trigger off B and C that are pretty uncontroversially the best support in the game, I'd say, or at least, very much up there. Again, he's another one you could possibly put with Cassian. Feels risky at 4 force, but maybe you can solve that with list building. No, look, again.
Too bad, right? Because NOS is a 0 force activation usually. So it's not as bad as it seems on paper. The heals from the Aqua Droids, right? It's not crazy for them to go far enough down to hit a few heals, right? And yeah, I Riff Cassian, it does feel like maybe like, you get a little scared about the pure murder matchup, right? Like the Hunter boss, the Iden Vader 1 could be stressful, but, I still like it.
It's interesting.
Still some love there.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a fun but tricky list to pilot, but, certainly if you're constantly sticking, like it's another tool to move Riff around, right? Which means that suddenly Riff can be in the middle of the board threatening extra attacks. It's interesting. Definitely interesting.
All right. Well, so I want to put you on the spot a little bit and be like, so first off, I have multiple questions, but I'm going to go with, maybe the easier one first. If you were to make a prediction about the primaries and the finals, what do you think it's going to be?
Okay. You want all 4? Is that
follow this up? Yeah, all 4. I'm going to follow this up and I'm going to ask you what you would hope that it is after this. We're going to do a little funner one after it, but let's do what do you think that matchup is going to end up being? Yeah.
Okay. Look, I think the boring and probably correct answer is it's going to be a Cassian versus either Cassian versus a Cassian or a Cassian versus a boss would be my suspicion. I think in terms of pairings, I do think Boss Obi is probably the one I like better. I think particularly if you're dropping it into a Cassian, I think it is just the better into the Cassian. And from a Cassian perspective, look, I like your Cassian Mando. I think that's a good idea. So I think something like that. That's, if I'm putting, if holding the gun to my head and saying pick, let's go with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I really think if there's going to be a Cassian list that rises to the top, my gut is that it would be Cassian Mando. And I do think that that's something that we could absolutely see played in the US. I don't think I'm going to see Boss Obi on the top table. Not because I don't think it's really good. I don't think enough US players play Obi. And, I'm going to say that my gut is that the other side is actually Empire, and it's going to be Iden plus something. I think we're going to see an Iden comeback here, and because us Americans, we lean into the violence a little bit. I think somebody's going to want to play Killy stuff, and I actually think the pure Killy team is slightly better on the Empire side than the Republic side, and so I think an Iden Moff or an Iden Vader 1 will pop in there somewhere, and we will see, like, can you outkill, like, a Cassian Mando on the top table, which would actually be a pretty interesting game. Like, if we're gonna get a Cassian game, like, I could be excited to watch that.
Yeah. No, I like it. Yep. I think you stole what I was hoping for, actually, which is,
okay.
I think
that was
something.
My next question.
Yeah.
What is your hope? Like, if let's not go too crazy where we're hoping for, like, I would love to see Asajj Ventress on the top table, but like, that is probably not going to happen. If it did, I'm buying it. Like, I don't care if they win. If they got Asajj on the top table, I am buying that person a beer.
There you go. But, there's incentive out there. Everyone change your lists.
But something that you think can get there and you'd be really excited to watch the stream for, like, what would you want on that top table?
Yeah, I think so, definitely an Iden and something is really interesting as a bit of a, like, V1 probably. I don't mind with V2. But potentially GI, although he makes it a little bit harder to murder stuff. But, I think Iden is definitely, that identity is still so strong. And then look, I think for the other side, look at something with Obi. I'd love to see something with Obi. Come on, Americans, you can do it. Again, I think Boss Obi is a very good, just all comers, good against most things. Or let's go back to that Obi Kiadi, very good. Obi, Mace that we were talking about before, very good. I think all of those, like, you're leaning a little harder on getting lucky with your matchups, but not crazily, not against stuff that's totally out of the meta. Just like maybe you don't hit the aggroest of the aggro lists on the way through when you're playing it. And I think there's a reasonable shot.
Yeah. I mean, if I was picking some individual models, I would absolutely want to see Mando on the top table, and Bosk has become one of my favorite characters of late. Obviously, great sculpt, and every time I play him, I'm just finding more ways to enjoy that model in what I feel is a very competitive way. Now, but I'm having a hard time building all the lists out for what I would want that to be. So I'm excited about our Obi Mace conversation. So I would love to see that. I'm with you there that I would love to see that on the top table to see if we were right, if that is as scary as it is. And then on the other side, it gets a lot harder as to what I would want to see against it. But I'm going to probably say, maybe like see if we get the Iden with, Moff Gideon comeback, cause I think it could struggle against Iden Vader 1. That might just be too much damage for the Obi Mace list. But I feel like we've seen Iden and, Moff Gideon before, and it'd be really interesting to see all the Empire people excited. Like, oh, maybe this is actually pretty dope. So definitely some cool stuff there. Do you have any players that you're rooting for? I don't know if anyone from Australia is making it, or if you have a favorite North American that you're rooting for in all of this.
Look, I think no is the short and diplomatic answer. You're not going, right? I can.
No, I'm going to be there, but I'm just going to record games and record interviews and drink. And I'm going to let other people be stressed out.
Nice. Fair enough. So yeah, look, a lot of people that I've spent a lot of time chatting with. So there's certainly a lot of names I'd be really happy to see up there. No one favorite. Yeah.
I mean, Donovan's not going. So, I mean, otherwise I would definitely be rooting for Donovan. I think it's a really strong mix of people. I know that there's always a level of disappointment because I think a lot of people have some lofty goals for themselves. And, my biggest advice going into this event for the people traveling, going into it is, keep some other goals for yourself. This is going to be a very hard tournament. There's going to be some dreams crushed. There's going to be some dreams fulfilled. And I would just say, like for myself personally, whenever I go out to a tournament, like one of my main goals is to learn something about what I'm playing. And if I come back with like a greater understanding of the game, then I'm going to call that a win in and of itself. Do you have any advice for the people who are right now on a plane heading to Milwaukee, getting nervous, spending extra time in the bathroom because this is the first big tournament for them? Any advice for all of these people traveling?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're 100% on the lowering the expectations a little bit, making sure you've got some other other goals. I think all the events I've done well at, I've spent at least a week or two convincing myself that I'd be happy with 3-2. Sort of that sort of, you know, if I'm going for a winning record, it's great. Because if you're too into it, it's so easy to get tilted off a couple of bad dice rolls in struggle 1. So you really sort of need to try and be as zen as you can be about whether you're going to win or not is, ironically the best way to win this sort of game. Beyond that, the other big one that I find, I reckon gives me a pretty strong edge, particularly with you got big days like you do with some of these, hydrate well and eat a healthy lunch. The difference between, 4 beers deep and a burger and, a salad sandwich and a bunch of water is, like pretty considerable when you're in your 4th game.
Also, don't change things dramatically for yourself. I am somebody who is West Coast time. And so when I travel like into a time zone that's multiple hours over, then I'm getting up earlier than usual. I cannot have a big breakfast in the morning. And a lot of people go down into these hotel breakfasts and stuff, hotel buffets, and I cannot eat 3 hours earlier than I'm used to eating. My body hates me all day long. And so there's little things. Don't shake up your body's routine too much. And in general, I will also say, like, some of my very first War Machine tournaments, I lost round 1 and I got over it. And then I at least went X and 1 for the day or for the event. And that feels really good coming back. You're like, hey, I lost round 1, but that was my only loss. I got out of it. And so if you do take one of those early losses, stay in it. I try not to drop. You learn so much at these events. You come away with so much knowledge, and you will feel so much more proud of yourself if you stick by it and you can get yourself to like an X and 1 record where you're like, I may have lost a game, but I didn't throw any others. And you're like, now the improvement is just go into that undefeated, and gives you a little bit more confidence going into the next one.
Yeah, 100%. Beyond that, usually the fun matchups and the unexpected matchups are in the lower tables anyway. So don't drop the fun stuff is often in the lower end where it's a bit less sweaty. So I agree.
And don't be the guy who turns into the win at all costs at the last moment. That stuff follows you around, and yes, we all want to win at these sort of events. And so just stay in good spirits. Be a good opponent. You are not going to want to walk away from the event, especially if you like become a win at all cost person and then still lose the game. And you're like, well, I turned into a dick for literally nothing. And yeah, not that I think that we have that problem really in the Shatterpoint community for the most part. Like, everybody seems so chill and so cool. And so just don't let the stress get to you. Be the good person where you like just both sides of the table walk away going, we were happy to be a part of this game.
Yeah, no question. It's, this is not a serious competitive game. This is not, playing for Grandmaster's chess. Yeah. Be loose, have fun. If they're little, let things go where you can. If you're not sure, call a judge. Don't get in anyone's face. Again, as you said, I haven't really encountered it either, but, you don't want to be that guy. No one wants to be that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think it's if I'm giving general advice to people traveling, I'm just like, man, stay in that same form. Play the way that you would want to play for your local community, where you want people to feel like this is a good game to be a part of. And just don't let that stress pressure make you into something that you're not. But overall, Luke, thank you so much for coming on and doing this with me, man. I think it's going to be something that all of the viewers are going to really appreciate as they're traveling. And are you going to be following Longshanks and stuff, like keeping an eye on this event here in just like a week?
Oh, no question. Yeah, I'm going to be very distracted that weekend. No question.
Baby in one hand, phone in the other, checking Longshanks?
Yeah, I mean, 4-year-old, so more like, Dad, pay attention. Dad, play with me. But, same.
Oh, man. I don't know if I've ever told you this, Luke, but when I did WTC for the first time, I was raising a little girl that was not my own, but my partner's. And when I found out that she made her grandpa find the website so she could follow the results of the event while I was away, I was like, that might be literally the sweetest thing that I have ever had happen to me.
That is adorable.
So, man.
Yeah.
Kids are special. But any closing thoughts before we wrap, Luke?
No, look, likewise, it's been a pleasure. Always, I feel like we've spoken a lot on the Discords, but never in person. So this is an exciting opportunity for me to, speak to the world famous Omnis. No, it's been a pleasure. It's, absolutely.
Well, it's a privilege for me getting to hang out with world famous Luke. So, I'm going to say it's a dream come true.
Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, we don't need to one up each other. This is all good.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will close things out there. Make sure to travel to Australia if you can absolutely manage it, or if you're part of the Australian community, get out there to some of these big events because, from what I hear from Luke and all of the Australians, you guys have an amazing community. So definitely participate in those. Luke is a very engaging guy and has amazing painted models. So you should definitely check those out. And, I will close things out there with the most OP thing that you can do is win Adepticon. Later, nerds.